So, what is a masterpiece? Some might ask. And while you may have a different answer than I, a lot of people tend to agree that Treasure's hit spaceship shooter, Ikaruga, is a masterpiece. Today, we're going to dissect that a little bit, where that comes from, and whether or not we agree. I think we've all played Ikaruga. Raise your hand if you played Ikaruga.
We
I
can't
was
see Lee's
wrong.
hand.
You can't see my hand, but I am not raising it. I wanted to play it, never played it, fortunately.
Oh, well, maybe today will help you decide whether or not you do. So, according to the reception and legacy section of the Ikaruga Wikipedia page, there's a lot of people that give this game a lot of very high praise, and I want to talk about it. So, Tyrone Rodriguez, first one of IGN, called it a shooter fan's shooter. It's a man's man and a shooter's shooter. Corby Dillard of Nintendo Life stated, if you're a shooter fan, you absolutely must own at least one version of this masterpiece. I don't use that word lightly, and I don't know if he did, but he used it. IGN listed Ikaruga as their game of the month for April 2003. That beats game of the week. We've talked about that on Spencer's channel. GameSpot named it the best GameCube title of that month. Okay, not as high an accolade, but still pretty high. Reception of the Xbox 360 and Windows ports was similar to the GameCube version. And then Topher Cantler of Destructoid gave Ikaruga a perfect score and dubbed it a work of art. Now, that is all these are very high accolades for a simple spaceship shooter. This genre has never really taken off since back in the day when it was very popular in the arcades, and that's where it all started. So Ikaruga is technically a successor to Treasure's first spaceship shooter, Radiant Silvergun, which was released in 1998. This game came out in 2001 and was later ported to other systems, first the Dreamcast, then the GameCube, then the 360, and then you can also download it nowadays on your PS4, your Xbox Series S. I'm not sure if I think it's on Switch.
Yeah.
So it's everywhere. Ikaruga is everywhere. But it's not your typical spaceship shooter, which is what really sets it apart from other spaceship shooters. When we think a spaceship shooter, we tend to think like a frantic arcade action-packed game where you're going to get destroyed and you got to dodge bullets and bullet hells. And that's kind of not what this game is. This is a more cerebral experience. So from a Shmuplations interview with a couple of the devs, I have some quotes here. In reality, it's an entirely different game. Conceptually, it is tied to Radiant Silvergun, and both games share certain basic aspects. Originally, we intended Radiant Silvergun itself to be a trilogy, but due to various circumstances, we couldn't achieve that. Ikaruga is connected with the ideas we had for the second game in that trilogy, specifically our thematic ideas about the setting. So, none of that's too important to me. It's more about a gameplay thing than it is like a narrative thing. I've never really followed the narrative in a spaceship shooter, aside from like Star Fox, if you'll call that one. But it is interesting to see that, it's connected to Radiant Silvergun, but it's not really a sequel. Radiant Silvergun is very unique in its own right. It has kind of RPG level up mechanics. I enjoy that one. It's hard as balls, hard balls, but this one is hard in a different way. Radiant Silvergun has like 30 stages. It's like I can't finish that game with the number of credits they give you. I can't finish it with 30 lives. Ikaruga is a little more attainable. It's only 5 stages, but within those 5 stages, what you're doing is just very different. So another quote. The comment we received the most about Ikaruga was, this isn't an arcade game, and that we should make it more thrilling and fast-paced. So even though a lot of people today call this game a work of art, at the time it had people who didn't really like the formula. They just didn't appreciate what it was. But for players looking for those qualities, I'm afraid there isn't much we can do. If those players want a game where they can shoot carefree and relax, I think they would be better off playing another game. So I'll talk a little bit about the gameplay. It's a black and white system. So there are black enemies and white enemies on screen at any given time, and your ship can flip between colors. And so what happens is you can absorb firepower of the same color. So you constantly are navigating this battle of You know, do I switch or do I not? The other thing that makes it interesting is you do double firepower on enemy units of the opposite color. Now, for common enemies, that doesn't matter. They're going to go down in one shot anyway. Although on the harder difficulties, they can fire back. So you do actually have to be aware of that. But another thing that makes this really fun is that it has a chain system. So if you can chain in sets of 3 the enemies by color, so say you take down 3 white enemies, you get a chain of 1. Then you could do either 3 white or 3 black. But anytime that you disrupt that cycle, your chain breaks. Why does that matter? If you care about score, it doesn't necessarily. However, the game is hard as nails. So there's extra lives every 2 million points at its bare minimum, or you can set it to like 3 or 5 million if you want, if you're some kind of psychopath. But honestly, I was very interested in trying to maximize my chain. I think it's very possible in the early stages, stage 1 and 2, to be able to pull that off. So rather than just destroying every enemy on screen, it's not to your best advantage. Sometimes it's better to take down enemies of, you know, in order to get your chain higher. I was able to attain extra lives in my playthrough, and I made it to stage 4. So one thing that makes this game especially difficult, it's got that signature treasure difficulty, is if depending on the version you're playing, you get limited credits. So on my version, on the Xbox Series S, I have my game set where you get 3 credits and you can max out at 5 lives, and I'm playing on easy difficulty. Doesn't matter. For as much practice as I've done, I've gotten to stage 4. And this is maybe after an hour or 2 of gameplay, and it's not the first time I've played it. But I was getting stuck around stage 2 or 3, and I was getting frustrated because I didn't really understand the system. It's just a very unique system. It's a different system, and I think I really appreciate that. I'll go into one more quote, maybe just some last words, and then we can kind of open the floor. You must never get complacent or self-satisfied with your own works. But even for myself, Ikaruga is a STG I really enjoy playing. So you have some commentary from the developer saying, yes, I play my own games. How high of a chain combo can you get? I hope players get long and full enjoyment out of the real-time puzzle experience that is Ikaruga. Now, I've very rarely heard a spaceship shooter also called a puzzle, but I think that's what it is, because they also talked about arranging the enemies on stage when they designed this game. And at first they designed it very simply, but then we're like, everybody's going to play the same way. So I wouldn't say they randomized it, but they made it so that it's more challenging to maintain the highest combo. I can see why there is a cult following for this game, why people have really gotten into saving their replays and trying to do 1 credit clears. I find it hard as nails. At some of the segments, this boss in stage 3, you're in like inside a wheel where there's like there's like maybe 12 components, black and white, and then you also have crates spinning around, and then as you go through the boss battle, it just picks up and he starts firing more at you. I could see how people get really into this game. And, you know, just, I think the key takeaway if you're playing this is practice makes perfect. Also, you know, I own the PS4 version, and that one you can put as many credits in as you want. I don't recommend that version simply for that fact. I think it actually takes away from the fun of the experience. The experience is getting better and understanding the system, and when you can put in as many credits as you want, you're going to play it casually. So I think that's why in the past I've looked at Ikaruga as kind of like, I don't get it. I don't understand why people love this so much. But after really just putting my all into it and really wanting the challenge and trying my best, I can empathize with this perspective about how people see this as just very novel for, like, not just a spaceship shooter, but a video game.